Hello my dear students and welcome once again to Zenith Academy Online. Today we are doing the first chapter of SSC class 8 Science, that is Living World and Classification of Microbes, and this is part 1 of this chapter. So in this module we are going to study about biodiversity and the need for the classification. We will study about the 5 kingdom system. We'll also talk about the characteristics of the kingdoms Monera, Protista and Fungi. So we'll be talking about the characteristics of 3 kingdoms, not all the 5. Okay. And in the next module, we'll be talking about classification of microbes and its characteristics. So let's start. So my dear students, according to 2011 census, okay, around 87 million species of living organisms are found on earth, including land and sea. Okay, so according to 2011 census, 87 million species of living organisms are found on earth, including the land and sea. Okay, so to study such a vast number, it was essential to divide them into different groups. So groups and subgroups were created considering the similarities and differences among the living organisms. So by studying the characteristics of different organisms, we will segregate or separate them according to their similarity and their differences. So this process of dividing living organisms into groups and then subgroups is called biological classification, because we have a large number of species, so we have to divide them so that we can study them properly. So Robert Harding Whittaker in 1920 to 1980 was an American ecologist, and in 1969 he divided living organisms into 5 groups. So here you have to remember that he was born on 1920, he died in 1980, and 1969 you have to remember this year. This was the year when he divided the organisms into 5 groups. Okay, so these are the 5 groups. He divided them into Monera, Protista, Fungi or Fungi, however it is pronounced, Plantae and Animalia. So these are the 5 kingdoms. So this is known as 5 kingdom classification given by Whittaker. So basically, this is the first 2 groups. The major groups of living organisms are prokaryotes and eukaryotes. What does the word pro mean? Pro means purane zamane ka, ancient times. So these are the some of the earliest living organism, prokaryotes, and eukaryotes is the modern times, what we are seeing now. Pro is ancient. Okay, so let's study. So what are prokaryotes? Prokaryotes are the microscopic single-celled organisms. Okay, they are made up of single cell, known to be the earliest on earth. That is why the word pro is there. That has neither a distinct nucleus with a membrane nor other specialized organelles. So you have to understand, see, all the nuclear material. Can you see? The nucleolus, the ribosomes, okay, everything. This is the DNA. Okay, so all of them is scattered. There is no boundary of the nucleus. We usually see the boundary of the nucleus. Okay, then there is a nucleolus. Okay, these are the chromatin fibers where DNA is present. So it is enclosed. Okay, it is enclosed in a boundary, but here there is no boundary, right? They are just scattered. So it does not have a distinct nucleus, and it does not have a nuclear membrane, and it does not have special organelles like the mitochondria and all those things. Okay, it does not have them. Whereas eukaryotes are organisms whose cell contain a nucleus. Now there is a nucleus. Can you see here? This full is a nucleus with a membrane, and there is a nucleolus. Can you see this inside one is a nucleolus, and this blue is a nuclear membrane. So this contain nucleus and other membrane bound organelles. All those organs who has membrane like the vacuoles, the centrioles, Golgi bodies, mitochondria, all those things. And there is a wide range of eukaryotic organisms, including all the animals, plants, fungi, protists. All four of them fall under eukaryotes, okay, as well as most algae. Eukaryotes may be either single-celled or multicellular. You have to remember prokaryotes was only single-celled, but eukaryotes can be single-celled or multicellular. So now we know living organism is broadly classified into prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Prokaryotes are only unicellular, whereas eukaryotes are unicellular as well as multicellular. Now in prokaryotes, unicellular, there is only one kingdom that falls, that is Monera. Now in eukaryotes, Protista is unicellular, whereas fungi, plantae and animalia all are multicellular. So now we'll talk about all of them in detail. So for classifying this, okay, Whittaker has to think a lot. So he considered different criteria for making these groups, for making these classifications. Now what are those thoughts, or what are those different criteria by which he decided? So first criteria was complexity of cell structure, that how complex is the cell structure. According to that, he divided into prokaryote and eukaryote, right? So this is a prokaryotic cell, this is a single cell, okay, prokaryotic, sorry, and then this is an animal cell and this is a plant cell, so they are eukaryotic. So depending on the complexity of cell structure, he divided them into prokaryotic and eukaryotic. Then depending on the complexity of organisms, for example, whether it is a unicellular organism or it is a multicellular organism, he was able to segregate, right? So you can see these are unicellular organisms, plants and animals are multicellular organisms. Then depending on the mode of nutrition, okay, how these organisms are taking in their nutrition, okay, how they are fulfilling their nutrition. So plants, what is the mode of nutrition in plants? They are autotrophic, that is prepare their own food, photosynthetic by a process known as photosynthesis, right? So all those that are preparing their own food with the help of photosynthesis were called plants. Fungi are saprophytic. Okay, saprophytic means they feed on the dead organism. They obtain their nutrition from dead organisms. So they absorb their nutrition from dead organisms. They were fungi. Animals were heterotrophic and ingestive. We all know animals are those that ingest, that take in food which is prepared by someone else. So heterotrophic, it does not prepare its own food. Then depending on their lifestyle, okay, whether they produce, okay, so what is lifestyle? What do they do? That is a lifestyle, right? So plants are the producers, they produce their own food, animals consume that food, and fungi is decomposer, that is they act on the dead organisms and decompose them, break the big molecules into smaller ones. Okay, so according to lifestyle also he was able to make some groups. Then according to phylogenetic relationship, now many students are confused as to what do you mean by phylogenetic relationship. So in your textbook they have given prokaryotic to eukaryotic or unicellular to multicellular, that's it. But I will explain you what is phylogenetic relationship. See, phylogenetic relationships are the relationships that show how far back two species share a common ancestor. So they have to look in the past that how far back the two species shared a common ancestor. For example, we have a closer phylogenetic relationship with other great apes. You know apes, right? So we have a closer phylogenetic relationship with apes. Then do we have with mice, and a closer phylogenetic relationship with mice then do we have with cats. Did you get it? So we have the closest phylogenetic relationship with apes, then we have with mice, and then cats are far away. Okay, so what do you mean by phylogenetic relationships? It refers to the relative times in the past that species shared common ancestors. So how from prokaryotic the species, slowly and steadily came to a eukaryotic type. How from one cell to multicellular. So depending on this relationship, or you can say the relative time in the past that this species shared a common ancestor, then also these type, then they were grouped together. For example, apes and we are grouped together because we have a closer phylogenetic relationship, isn't it? So all these criterias are over. We studied 5 criterias. First is complexity of cell structure, then complexity of organisms, whether it is multicellular or unicellular, then what is the mode of nutrition, how is their lifestyle, and the phylogenetic relationship. So these were the 5 criterias that helped Whittaker to decide which group will be formed, how the different organisms will be grouped into these 5 kingdoms. So we'll talk about first kingdom, Monera, in detail now. So you can look at these examples. These are taken from your textbook. Streptococcus pneumonia, Treponema pallidum, Vibrio cholerae, Salmonella typhi, Clostridium botulinum, Staphylococcus aureus, Legionella pneumonia, right? So these are the different examples. So let's talk about the characteristics of Monera. So you have to learn all the characteristics and at least 2 examples. So all the organisms in first kingdom Monera are unicellular. So if we look back here, let me show you this again. Okay, if you see this, so Monera, this is the first kingdom we are talking about. So it is a prokaryotic cell. Prokaryotes, unicellular. Okay, so 2 of the characteristics we already know. So the first character is all the organisms are unicellular. Then they may be autotrophic or heterotrophic. Now they can prepare their own food. They may be autotrophic or heterotrophic, that is obtain the nutrition from some other organism. Then they are prokaryotic cells. We already know prokaryotic cells, ancient cells, or without distinct nucleus or cell organelles. They are without the distinct cell nucleus and cell organelles. So these are the 3 important characteristics of Monera. Unicellular, can be autotrophic or heterotrophic, and then they are prokaryotic, that is without the distinct nucleus or cell organelles. You have to learn any 2 examples. So better learn 2 to 3 examples so that you don't forget in the exam. Okay. So this is easy, Staphylococcus, because it is easy to make them also. It's a cluster of spherical balls. Okay, you can make that. Salmonella typhi is a very basic example. You can do that, right? Now let's talk about kingdom 2, Protista. So kingdom 2, Protista, all the 4 examples you should be knowing: Volvox, Paramecium, Euglena and Amoeba, right? So kingdom 2, what are the characteristics? First, they are single celled. Okay, they are single celled organisms. Now they are eukaryotes, therefore they will have well defined nucleus enclosed in a nuclear membrane. So they are single celled and eukaryotes. These 2 things are there. They have pseudopodia. Now what is pseudopodia? The word pseudo means false and podia means legs. So pseudopodia is false legs. Okay, false legs, or hair-like cilia or whip-like flagella. Okay, so if you see here, this small is hair. Okay, hair-like cilia. Okay, they are known as cilia. They look like hairs. They are known as cilia. Okay, and whip-like, चाबुक जो होता है ना, चाबुक के जैसा, देखो ये ऐसा. Are you getting me? It is something like this. Whip-like flagella for locomotion. Locomotion, you know, for movement, right? So just a second. So what are the characteristics? How you will learn? Single celled, well-defined nucleus enclosed in a nuclear membrane. So single cell, unicellular. Eukaryotes, they have pseudopodia, false legs for their locomotion. So example, cilia, which are hair-like, and flagella. So this part is known as a flagella. This is a turned one. Flagella is whip-like. Whip matlab chabuk, for the locomotion, for the movement. Now, autotrophs. What are the examples of autotrophs? Euglena. This one is an autotroph. Volvox. This is a volvox. Now, both of them contain chloroplast. They are green in color. They prepare their own food. Okay. And heterotrophs. The examples are amoeba and paramecium. These are heterotrophs. Okay. So, which are the two autotrophs Protista? Euglena and volvox. Which are the two heterotrophs Protista? Amoeba and paramecium. You will have to learn the spellings very well. Now, next kingdom is kingdom fungi. Okay. So, we will have to study a lot about fungi. Most of the questions are asked from here. Okay. So, see the examples. Mushroom is one of the basic examples that we know from kingdom fungi. Right. So, first characteristics is they are non-green. Okay. So, non-green means they will be heterotrophic. And we know that all the others, all the four members are eukaryotic. So you can write they are eukaryotic, does not have a distinct nucleus with a and does not have a distinct cell organelles with proper cell membrane, right? So they are non-green, heterotrophic, eukaryotic. This is the first characteristic. Second, most of them are saprotrophs. Okay, saprotroph means they feed upon decaying organic matter. So whatever organic matter, see this, okay, they decay and these mushrooms have grown on it. They feed upon the decaying organic matter. So most of the fungi you will see around the dead matter only. So whenever there is organic decaying matter, organic matter which is decaying, they feed upon them. They are saprotrophs. Okay, they don't prepare their own food. Okay, they do not obtain nutrition from other organisms. They just feed upon the decaying organic matter. Then their cell wall is made up of tough and complex sugar called chitin. You should remember this word chitin. Okay, so you know in an animal cell there is a cell membrane first, and then outside you have a cell wall. So this cell wall, okay, this is cell wall. So this cell wall is made up of chitin. Okay, tough and complex sugar. What is chitin? Chitin is a tough and complex sugar. Okay. Next, some fungi are thread-like and many nuclei are present in the cytoplasm. You can see it is an enlarged picture from electron microscope. So you can see they are thread-like and you can see there are multiple nucleus. Okay, there are so many nucleus in the cytoplasm. Now, these are the different examples. First example is baker's yeast. You must have seen baker's yeast. Nah? You must have seen when your mom is making cakes or something. So, they look like this. Okay, this is an enlarged figure of baker's yeast. Next example is aspergillus. Okay, just a second. So aspergillus is also known as fungus on corn. So you can see there is a fungus on this corn. So this is nothing but aspergillus. This is a detailed diagram of it under a microscope. This is under an electron microscope. You can see this is how it looks like. Okay, aspergillus, fungus on corn. This is another example. The next example is penicillium. Okay, this is how a penicillium looks like. And mushrooms, we all know how mushrooms look like. Okay, so I have given you a picturesque diagram of everything so that you remember the things very well. So just let's once again revise whatever we have done. Organisms, all the living organisms are broadly classified into prokaryotic. Pro means ancient. You have to remember it like that. So they were ancient, so there was no nuclear membrane, no organelles formed, right? And then there are eukaryotic. Under prokaryotic, there is only first kingdom. So Monera is the first kingdom. There are 5 kingdoms we have to do, right? Eukaryotic can be unicellular and multicellular. This one is obviously unicellular. Monera is unicellular. Now, eukaryotic can be unicellular or multicellular. There is only one example in unicellular, that is Protista. This is the second kingdom. Okay, now multicellular is with a cell wall and without a cell wall. We know that all the animal cells are without cell wall, right? So without cell wall is animals, and with cell walls are plants. Okay, but they are different types. Phototrophic. Okay, there can be phototrophic and heterotrophic. Phototrophic, we know, prepare their own food with the help of photosynthesis. So plantae. Okay, this is the third, plantae. Then heterotrophic, right? Or we can say saprotrophic, are fungi. Okay, and then without cell wall, we know that one without cell wall is Animalia. So right now, these are the 3 ones that we have studied: Monera, Protista, and fungi. We know mostly about plants and animals. That is why we are not studying Plantae and Animalia kingdom right now in class 10. Because there are many sub-kingdoms, okay, under Plantae and Animalia that we will study in our higher classes. The 5 broad classification, the 5 broad groups into which Whittaker classified living organisms is Monera, Protista, fungi, Plantae, and Animalia. Okay, so once again, let's see prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Prokaryotes are unicellular, and this is kingdom 1, Monera. Eukaryotes, unicellular and multicellular. Unicellular we know is Protista. Now for multicellular, we have 3: fungi, plantae, and animalia. In fungi, the cell wall is present, but organisms can't perform photosynthesis. Okay, whereas in plantae, cell wall is present and organisms can perform photosynthesis. And in kingdom 5, that is Animalia, no cell wall, right? So this was all about today's module. In the next class, we'll talk about different bacteria, different microorganisms. Okay, so we will talk about different microbes in the next lecture. So stay tuned with Zenith Academy Online and keep the learning always on. If you have liked the video, do share it with your friends. Write the comments in the comment section, and do not forget to tap on the bell icon so that you receive notifications when we upload our next video. So bye bye my dear students, and keep the learning always on.